Welcome, guys. I'm Vulture Culture, and this is the Yamaha CS-30 from 1977, and it is a synthesizer I have been lusting after for years. It's one of my three white whales of the studio: the Oberheim Expander, the Yamaha CS-30, and one day, hopefully, I will have my hands on a Prophet VS. So, welcome. Tonight, we're going to explore this bad boy, and it is just such a treat to have this synth in the studio because it represents essentially Yamaha's attempt at making the most modular, flexible type of synthesizer they could make. They never made a full-size modular that I'm aware of, and I think that this is kind of that same sort of architecture. In fact, it really shares a lot of architecture with the Korg MS-20, which came out the year after, 1978. And I was going back and forth, and I was like, you know what? I don't think there's a single thing that the MS-20 can do that isn't possible with the 30, with the exception of the MS-20 has a pitch to CV converter, which I don't believe this has. It does look very clean. In fact, my girlfriend, when I showed her the synth, she was like, oh, when did it come out? And when I said 77, she was like, there's no way. It looks modern. And it's a little, because of the bright lights, you can't see the color scheme 100%, but what I would say is like the kind of black, white, and orange color scheme, I feel like they're still putting out synths nowadays, like modern synths that look like that. Yes, it is bitimbral aquatic in a sense. So the way I have it set up right now, I was using the sequencer to control one VCO into a filter into a VCA. So it's got basically double that, right? So, but the flexibility of this thing is crazy. It doesn't stay only, VCO, VCF, VCA. It could be all sorts of things. For instance, VCF2 can pull from either the saw or the square of VCO2 or VCF1's high pass filter. Yes, and I actually, Hans, I have that set up. So real quick, one thing I was thinking about with the MS-20, if I play this little sequence here, I was like, filter FM. It really doesn't have a pathway for filter FM set up, but what you do have is I actually have a cable running out of the back from, you can send, right now you're listening to a mix of VCA 1 and 2, but you can also just send one or the other out and then back in. So if you do that, you can use that as a modulation source. So I'm going to do that again. And you can hear how that's affecting the filter there. And if I increase the resonance further, that's where you'll really start to hear that sound. So we can actually get filter FM, although it might not be 100%. It's a little bit more wild. We'll do some experiments with that as we keep going. One thing that this synth has that the other CSs don't have is this 8-step sequencer, but it could actually be as many steps as you want. So if we wanted to put that just in 6, then we have it, and it's unquantized. So I had to do that by ear, which does take a little bit. And we could put it into, if we wanted to say, turn that off, what I can do is put it into keyboard mode and then transpose this. And I've also been curious, I haven't tried this yet, using the CV out of this as a modulation source elsewhere in the synth. It is truly complicated. So what I want to start off with is sort of just exploring the basics of the synth, and then we'll get progressively more complicated. So let's just go. So one thing about synths from the 70s as opposed to the 80s is there wasn't a standardized way to do things. So all of the companies had different methods of putting together the way their synths worked. And for example, the CS series, which like the CS-50, 60, and 80 has this type of envelope, has the initial level and an attack level, which is kind of different than what you would see on most of the other synths of the time, which would just have attack, decay, sustain, release, or even in the case of like a mini Moog at the time. Remember, there were very few portable synthesizers in 1977. You had basically the mini Moog, you had the Odyssey, and then you had preset synths that came out from companies like Roland, Korg, and Yamaha. Blue Comet is another one, I believe, from Japan that put out basically like preset sounds, but they weren't full synths in the sense that you didn't have like complete control over them. So it's interesting because we have two ADSRs and one more, Yamaha CS-80 style envelope. But it's labeled 1, 2, and 3. But if you look at the envelope generator selector, we have A, B, C, D, and E. So what the fuck is that? Well, what it is that it took me an embarrassingly long time to notice this iconography here. So A is positive, B is negative EG1, C is positive EG2, and D is negative EG2. And then envelope generator 3 is always positive. So this is, already sort of strange and archaic. So let's just see if I can get it back to something like a sawtooth wave real quick. Let's see. What do I need to do to get there? I need to put VCO. Here we go. Now I've got nothing. What did I do wrong? See, it's already... Wait. Okay, so something I've knocked out of the way here. VCA2 should be set to EG... 2, and then let's set it to the low pass filter, and we can bring that down. And we can turn the modulation depth down. There we go. So it's pretty close to right. We do have limiter here, works as a pitch. That works, and it's very smooth. This one's been recently serviced. Yeah, it looks incredible. It looks brand new. So that's a sawtooth wave. Now, if we want to change that to the square wave, you would normally go, and another thing that's like weird about this synth, or took me a second, is on almost every synthesizer, VCO1's kind of like your main oscillator, and then VCO2 is sort of like your, if you're going to do any cross mod or something, hard sync, that's going to be the one that you use to modulate VCO1. And that's true when it comes to cross mod, but that's it. It's actually in every other way, even the detunes VCO1, not 2. And VCO2 is not completely hardwired to VCA2, but what it is yeah, it's like always pulling from either VCF1 or the SAR square, and there's no mixer here. So you're kind of always going to hear VCO2 unless you put it into high pass mode, or you turn VCA2 off either with the balance slider over here, or by using an EG, like the sequencer EG, right? Which I kind of have roughly started using the synth where EG1's for the filter, EG2 is for sustain, EG3 is for the sequencer. But already it's like kind of crazy, right? And if we want to select the square wave, normally you would pick square wave from the oscillator section, right? You'd pick saw, square, whatever. But no, you have to pick it in the filter section. And it makes sense in a way, because if you know a bit about how synths are made, VCOs are, generally speaking, outputting all the time into a wave shaper, and those multiple wave shapes are spat out at all times, which is why, like on a Juno, you can select multiple wave shapes off of one oscillator. So that's the case here too. So in some sense, we've all gotten used to this idea that your oscillator section will have all of your oscillator controls and sort of gate what goes into the filter. But on this synth, most things work backwards. It's more like what's feeding the filter. And that's the way to think about it. So now we have the square wave. And I'm going to turn that up a bit. I want you guys to really hear that. It probably is. Let's add some PWM to that. So the first thing to notice is the LFO also has its own envelope depth. So this is the same type of thing that we actually, there's actually more in common, I would say, with this synth, with the CS-30M behind me than with the 80. So for instance, the envelopes have this normal mode or time X5. I think, hopefully you guys can see that. Probably can see it best right here. That's not on the 50, 60, or 80, but it is in the M series, those guys behind me. So there's a way in which certain features kind of got skipped over, or, you know, like, even though this came out 77, the same year as the 80s, the 50, 60, and 80, it feels a little bit more like the 70 or the 40M in a way. And then let's check out the filter. And let's add some resonance. Ooh, the hatred. We do have keyboard follow. Let's see if we can tune it to an interval. Yeah, it seems like... So the power on this is pretty extreme. It's pretty dirty as compared to the 70. The 70 gets really dirty too. I guess they all do. It's just you usually don't hear that dirty sound. Can I get a scum cheers in the chat? From the 80, I've heard people in the comment section say that the 80 can get nasty like the 70M and like the blackface one. So let's talk about the series real quick. So 1977, Yamaha comes out with the 50, 60, and 80, right? Those are the classic ones. The Blade Runner one is the CS-80, the one that no one can afford. Then we get the first of the monosynths with the black paneling. And the first ones were, let me see if I get this right, the CS-10, the CS-30, and the CS-30L. The CS-30L is the same synthesizer, except it doesn't have the sequencer, but it does have the brilliance control, which isn't here. And there is a brilliance control on the 50, 60, 80, and then like something like the 70Ms and stuff. Following the next year in 78 is actually when the CS5 and CS15 came out. So the CS15 is a really cool synth. It's essentially the same thing as this without the sequencer, but it's got some improvements. In fact, you can actually play that synth completely duophonically, or really bitimbrally, not duophonically, via CV and gate, which you can't do on this. Now, this one's been Tubatech modded, so there's stuff you can do to get around that. But essentially, the 15 is in some ways an upgrade to the 30. It also has the brilliance slider that's not here on this synth. So, and it, in general, if you're talking street prices for these synths, a 15 is going to have almost everything that this has tonally, except for the ring modulator. I think that's the only thing that's missing, but you can usually get them for about $1,000. Then the CS-30L, which is almost exactly the same synth. It has a brilliance slider, but it loses the sequencer. You could get that for about $2,000. And then finally, the Mac Daddy of them, the CS-30, you could get for about $3,000 right now. However, I think all three of those are very cool. And I think Seri has a CS, a 10, perhaps. Was that what you said? And so then the 10 was like the original one oscillator version of this without the sequencer. And then later on, the 5 is kind of like the, you know, the update to that / stripped down version. So what Yamaha often did was strip things down in the same way that the 70M is sort of an 80, but stripped down, but also with new features. That's how Yamaha tended to do. Yes, I agree, Billy. The naming convention leaves something to be desired for sure. That is so cool. $150. That's a sick deal. But considering that this costs 3 times as much as the CS15 and really doesn't give you a whole lot more, I think the 15 is probably the sweet spot as far as you get the 2 oscillators per voice that you don't get with the 5 or the 10. You get the brilliance slider from the 30L, and you get the ability to play each filter and oscillator independently versus via CV and gate, or CV and trigger, really, I should say, that you don't get on this synth either. So, but for me, I'm an idiot, so I'm gonna always go for the one that has the most features, and that would be this one. Just kind of crazy. And one more thing to talk about. I want to ask the snobs out there. Can I get some scum snobs in the chat? I think the only 2 vintage Yamaha analog synths to have a sequencer are the 30 and the 70M, actually. So I think, even though I'm kind of known for hating sequencers, I think I kind of accidentally bought the only 2 Yamaha analog synths that had sequencers. Let me know if I'm wrong about that. So anyways, that's one oscillator. Let's bring in the first oscillator now. So I'm going to move that to keyboard, and then I'm going to select, let's see, let's turn VCF1. We'll put to square as well, and we'll use what, like a similar amount of PWM. So the same settings. And then I need this VCA3 to be oh, I see. So we got to bring the filter up. So we have separate filters per, well, I was going to say per oscillator, but that's not even true. The modular nature of this, again, we could use these in parallel, right? Or I'm sorry, it's generally in parallel, but we could use it in serial, kind of like an MS-20, where we could use the VCF1 high pass. Let's try that, actually. And feed that into VCF2. Let's see if I turn that down. And now... Now we sort of have it in, sort of like an MS-20 mode where we can control both filters and create these kind of talky bandpassy things. So that's one way we could use it. Let's go back to the square waves though. That's for fun. And make sure they're both in low pass mode. And the VCAs are set to C and the EGs are set to A. So that kind of gives us our basic sort of sound. So attack level, let's just leave it like this for a second. Oh, I have to turn it up. It's so easy to get lost on this thing. That is right. So that's the one thing about the incredible CS series of filters is they don't self-oscillate. Now, let's just crank the resonance, so watch your eardrums. So, it's pretty impressive, but not necessarily. Yeah, it's not quite an MS-20 in that sense. For me, more than good enough. Then, of course, we have bandpass filters. So we can set these into bandpass mode here. So that's the maximum amount of resonance we're going to get out of it. But it's, I mean, it still sounds really great. So I'm going to try my best to explain initial and attack level. Can I get some scum blips in the chat? Steve Porcaro was recently on Anthony Marianelli's channel, and he was talking about the CS-80 and said he never really got his head around this initial attack level thing. So I'm going to explain it to you. It's actually not as crazy as people think. So there's no sustain level. It's not a 5-stage envelope. Truly, it's still 4-stage, but there's no sustain level. With this CS style envelope, the cutoff frequency is the sustain level. Now, if you were making a typical synth sound, for instance, like a brass sound, you might want it, we'll pretend this is the filter for a second. You might want to add a quick attack, a medium decay, and bring the cutoff pretty low, but maybe the sustain not all the way down, maybe to like 50%, so that it starts off really dark, opens all the way, and then comes, but it doesn't completely clamp down from the start point. That's how you could do it with like a traditional envelope. Now, in our case, initial level goes from 0 to -5, counterintuitively. I would have thought this was, the initial level was all the way up, and then that's bringing it down, but that's not the case. Initial level starts at 0, and if I put this, you'll be able to hear what happens. So here's the sound. Let's go with a pretty thin sound. So it's starting pretty high. If we increase the initial level slider, which is actually going negative, especially if I slow the attack time down, you can hear that it's digging a lot deeper. So without, pretty high, and then lower. So that's how you could do that. Now, after this series, they gave up on this shit. In fact, I think on the 15, I think this might be the last synth that has this kind of bizarre envelope style, because I want to say on the 5 and the 15, you just have ADSRs like you would expect on most synths. And then certainly the M series, which came out in 79 to 81. The last one was the 70M. Those had ADSRs as well. So and you'll notice that even though I'm going to kill the decay time so you can hear this, again, the sustain level is now the cutoff frequency. So it can dig deeper than that cutoff frequency. It's starting below that. And I have it on time 5 mode right now. Let's do that again, but let's do it with the low pass filter. So the EG depth doesn't go necessarily as far. Let's try EGC and see if we get more distance. We do. We actually do, which is crazy. So I guess if you want more distance, you can use the second two EGs. Seem to have more range. So let's go ahead and put the VCAs into EG3 now. Is triggered from the keyboard as well, because all of these envelopes can be triggered by the sequencer or from the keyboard. But for now, I'm trying to use it just... yeah, Behringer just announced another product made entirely of components that have been in the DeepMind 12 for a very long time. Think about that. Like, somehow people are so excited that they're putting out a Juno clone, and it's literally the same shit that was in DeepMind 6 and 12. But don't get me wrong, those are really cool synths from Behringer. It's my favorite thing that they've done, because at least it's got a little of its own character. But yeah, the DeepMind 12, like, what's the difference? But the bait. Roland, there's only been one company that's ever successfully sued Behringer, and it was a long time ago. So essentially, if you're not violating a trademark like the name, like if they put the word Roland on the synth, obviously that wouldn't work. There's nothing they can do, because the circuits in these synths have about like a 7-year patent time. So once those 7 years are up, and in the case of the 1982 Juno 6, right, that would have been 1987 that the patent was up, you can reverse engineer any circuit. And in principle, that's not a bad thing, right? If someone wanted to come along and use the filter architecture of the Yamaha CS series and do something new with it, I don't think anybody would have a problem with that. I think Behringer's going through a little bit of something, though, because when you look at what's going on with their product lineup, it's been really curious how they've been evergreening stuff. Even the Prophet 600 was using parts that they already had from other synths. For instance, they didn't actually model the filter on the Prophet 600, the Curtis filter. They just borrowed the filter that they already had kind of made from the Prophet 5, but they didn't want to put out a Prophet 5 emulation because they knew they'd get ripped up. It's kind of like Beetlejuice. If you say Behringer 3 times in a row, lawyers will appear. Yeah. Well, the JP8000 sort of came out in the little version there. Adapt. I do not hate Behringer. I don't have any problem with them. But what I will say is, let me say it this way. The most powerful thing you can do if you want to change the world is look at how you spend your money. So when you're talking about a company like Behringer versus a company that's innovating and coming up with new stuff, the vast majority of the cost of a synthesizer is not the components. The components are not that expensive. The time, the R&D that goes into developing a new synth, if you just imagine paying a team of people salaries over the years, if some of these synths take 3 years to develop, right, at least, that creates innovation. A company that just takes what's already been done, copies the homework, and sells it, right? Obviously, their prices are going to be a lot cheaper, which is great. I love whenever anybody can afford synths. That's a positive thing. I just think that because of that, people put a lot of money into those synths instead of the synth companies that are innovating. That's what I would say. DeepMind's fine. I like that. Let's see. Poly Aftertouch keyboard. That's another example of what I mean, though, by there's something going on at Behringer that's kind of weird because they did not develop the Poly Aftertouch keybed for an Oberheim product because Oberheims barely had Aftertouch in them at all. Only the like Matrix 12 and Matrix 6 had Aftertouch. All of the previous ones didn't. They certainly didn't have Poly Aftertouch. They were developing it for the CS-80 clone that they've been working on. Something's going wrong there because they've then put it in an Oberheim product. Now they're putting it in a Roland Juno, which also didn't just not have Poly Aftertouch. It didn't have Aftertouch either. So it's this really interesting thing going on. Yeah. Dubstation says, I have a huge problem with them stealing ideas and designs of current manufacturers. That's correct, too. Eurorack modules from people I would call my friends. Make Noise and IntelliGel. That's right. I think we all don't mind when Behringer clones something like the Monopoly, which Korg has the rights to. I have one right there. I love my vintage one. But for some reason, Korg, even though they make modern analog synths, has refused to put out an analog Monopoly. They make analog ARP Odysseys. But so if Behringer wants to do that, fine. But the problem when they start copying from Eurorack companies and modern companies, they've done it to Arturia. They take whatever product is selling currently that they spent their R&D money on, and they can just clone it because no one's been that successful at suing them. Cascadia is super cool. Now here's the thing. We could lose our fucking minds talking about Behringer right now, which isn't really what I want to do. So Roland not releasing new analog synthesizers is a whole rant I could get on too. I've been very vocal about the products that they put out. In fact, it seems to have gotten me a lot of hate because it pisses me off when they do Zencore versions of things instead of ACB versions of things. So yeah, I in my heart, if you had to say, which would you rather buy? A Juno X or what is it? The JN80, the new Juno 60 clone from Behringer. Which would you rather have? I'm going Behringer. I'm going Behringer all freaking day for sure. That's the thing is when they steal from tiny companies, that's different than when they steal from Roland for sure. I like the S1 too. Actually, it was a really cool synth. Yeah. No, I did not say Roland is a tiny company, but Behringer does steal from tiny companies. Does that make sense? They have no ethical problem with doing that, So the Poly Aftertouch, but also I just think Zencore is not good enough because Roland makes a better emulation of their own products. Like that's what drives me crazy. A System 8, hands down, I think the best Roland synth they've put out. I used to be more hateful because it bothered me that it's not analog, and now I have updated my opinion to say I think the System 8 was the way to go. I think they did a really great job with the D50 Boutique. But yeah, now the important thing is this is just all my opinion, and that's the great thing about being into synthesizers is we can all have our opinions, and there's nothing wrong with that. I encourage people to just at least think about how they're spending their money ethically, as opposed to just focusing on, you know, what synth is the cheapest, right? There's always going to be that pressure. Obviously, I am not under that financial pressure. I have a studio that's worth, you know, an entire midlife crisis. So I'm not saying that everybody should be like me. I'm not saying everybody should buy vintage synths. Not at all. But I do have my opinion, and I'm going to say it. And hopefully everybody here can appreciate that I'm going to be honest with you guys, except for when I'm shelling out for Guitar Center. Just like on the other CS sets, we actually have a sine oscillator that comes off of that. That was the problem though with System 8, right? Like first off, the look, a lot of people were not into the look. And then the quality of the feeling of it didn't feel premium. I've been saying now for over a year that they need to do a System 64 where they just give me the JD08 and slap that bad boy in with their ACB of a Jupiter 8, stack that all up, and that would be amazing. We do have control over the trigger here, so we can put it into multi, so every time I hit a note. Unlike on most of my 70 synths that have low note priority, this has high note priority, which is really nice. PWM Malevolent is a great example of a synthesizer that I would rather spend my money on, because that company is innovating. They're trying to do something new. You know who else makes incredible value synthesizers? I do not know how Dreadbox does it, right? Dreadbox puts out great synths at incredible prices. And so there are companies. Look, I have been as critical as anyone. I think you guys could go back and watch the videos and clock me on this if I'm being dishonest. I've been as critical as anyone about Moog overpricing their synthesizers. I've been critical about Waldorf overpricing their synthesizers. I am not saying that that's not a valid argument too. But there are companies that aren't the big ones like Sequential, Oberheim, stuff like that, who are putting out stuff that I would want to put my money into. Korg. Big corporation, but they put out really great products at reasonable prices. I mean, they're just dominating the digital game, right? With like the multi-poly and wave state, mod wave, that type of thing. So, oh, is Escape here? Welcome. How's it going? Mighty Pinto, how's it going, my friend? Okay, so now we've kind of covered that. Let's jump in the high pass filter real quick. So let's go in there. We can turn the VCO off. It's interesting, it never gets quite dark, does it? Can't quite get it dark all the way, which is an interesting thing. Now, let's go MS-20 mode. So we'll go turn the EG depth down on everything. And now we're going to feed VCF2 from VCF1. And VCF1 is still... So now what... So what's crazy is then we can bring VCF2 into VCA1 as well, which is just... Wait, that needs to be low pass. Yeah. Now I wonder, and then what's crazy is then we can feed VCF2 into VCA1 as well. Now that's currently getting the high pass filter, but we could then move that to like band pass. And now we have a notch filter. So let's use some EG depth here. Put it into time X5. Are you still here, Adapt? I hope I haven't ruined our friendship. So we can get all sorts of crazy sounds out of this from mixing these different filter types. I mean, it is a little mind-boggling for sure, because right now we're pulling the low passes, which is this low pass is being fed by this one as the high pass off of this one. Oh, okay, Adapt. I just wanted to say, like, I hope that my opinions haven't tainted our friendship at all. I got insecure. The VCF1 high pass mode, though, I think it's not as satisfying as it is on the MS-20. That's for sure. Like the MS-20, those two filters just interact with each other in a great way. Here, it's kind of thinner of a setup. We can put this into drone modes where they're not being held by the envelope generators whatsoever. And then, of course, like ring modulation for me is a big part of this. So let's go ahead and just pick something else. Okay, good. I love you. Now let's see if I turn. So even if you get it really tight, it has that discrete VCO thing. Actually, this might be an IC VCO. I'm not sure. Really perfecting IC technology at the time. They might have been the first to really go for it. But the detune is just great. Even if I try to get it really locked in. There's always going to be that life in it. So, we haven't even talked about that. Like every single block has its own envelope generator selector and its own LFO shape, right? So we can modulate. Let's just pull back. Let's do it this way. Let's just pull. We're listening to just VCO2 now. So let's just look at that real quick. So envelope depth. We can pick whichever one of these we want to check out. So like if we want to use EG2, for instance. Should be right. Oh wait, I was on the wrong one, I think. Ooh. Oh, I think that knob's off. We want to make like a kick drum. That's how we could get into that territory. If we wanted. Yeah, this knob's off. I need to adjust that because it's pointed towards A, but it's actually selecting C, I think. So that's one option. But also, we can control the pitch of both of these separately. So we've got sample and hold. Let's dial that up on VCO2, the right one. That's how we get these beautiful sci-fi tones, you know? We also have external here. On the wrong one. External here. Which... Ooh, I don't know what I'm doing wrong there. Okay, listening to one real quick here. We can modulate this via cross mod, so... So we can get those types of sounds. So why don't we create a wobble? Johnny ADI, how's it going? So, I mean, we could get all sorts of really cool kind of dubby, drum and bassy type sounds. So where this gets interesting though is the speed of the LFO can be modulated by an envelope as well. So let's go ahead and use a slow decay time. We'll put in the normal mode and I'm going to select C and then bring up that. Could go, the LFO goes into such high audio rate, right? cool sound, right? Someone could sample this and make a sick dub track. And by the way, I don't remember, can the LFO on the CS-50, 60, and 80 do this? Because it can do it on the 70M, but I don't think it could do it on the 50, 60, and 80. Some snob out there can let me know. But really cool sounds that you couldn't get from any other synthesizer that doesn't have this architecture. I shouldn't say not from any other synth, because all you really need is cross mod. You need a detune knob that has more than a semitone's worth of range, because that's huge. Unfortunately, that's like something you don't get on a lot of synths. The detune knob's just for that, but sometimes you have a coarse tune knob. That'll work too, I suppose. This just has the feet here. But it's nice that the detune knob actually lets you go to sort of more extreme stuff. Yeah, so can I get a scum cheers, you guys, to adapt for being a good sport, for still being my friend after I talked about Behringer. So cheers, guys. Dude, how sick. Oh, isn't that a kind of reminds me of an Imperial probe droid? Sort of that type of sound. So anyways, let's kill the mod depth on that and try to get this back. Somehow I have a sine wave now. There we go. Okay. Yeah, that's super cool, Johnny. I need to check one of those out at some point. Yeah, the vintage stuff here. Can everybody hear me? I just stepped on my thing. Sorry about that. My mic cable, not my actual thing attached to my body, although it is hanging around down there. The vintage stuff just is compelling. The modern stuff can sound just as good, probably, but you know, there's something you could just like trust the goodness from this era for sure. So we've covered now. I want to just see if we've covered most of this stuff. So let's go to the VCF again. Bring in modulation depth. So this is a really cool thing. Using Sawtooth. Let's turn the echo on. Reminding me of the track Color Fast by Pendulum. That's a great question, Hans. Yes and no. So here's my like day one of experimenting, because I just got this synth, opinion of it. On one hand, I'm so thrilled that I can sell my MS-20. I haven't had the balls to actually put it up for sale, because unless I've already done that, but I have the price like super high or something, which sometimes I'll do just to have it up, but not like I'm going to sell it yet. That's an incredible piece of history right there. I've never gotten along with it. There's just something about it. Now, what's crazy is this synth you've already seen is laid out in such a bizarre, arcane way. But yesterday when I turned it on, so I guess it's day 2. Yesterday when I turned it on and tried to figure it out to see if I could do the stream, it was the first time, and I can't tell you guys how long, that I felt truly lost. And it took me so long just to figure out like the basics of how this thing works, you know? And for me, it's been a long time. Even programming Leviathan, which is obviously a complicated synth, you know, it's more like figuring out where the buttons are or something, but like it still follows basic FM and subtractive principles. Whereas this is such a modular nature synth, like the MS-20. Obviously, the MS-20, on some level, I'm sure there's got to be some stuff you could do with the MS-20 that you can't hear just because you have that semi-modular patch bay. But when I think about it, I'm like, I certainly can't think of anything that I've ever seen someone do with the MS-20 that's not possible here. And for that reason, I'm so excited to have a synth like this. I mean, it is a white whale. I will say this too, though, to your point or to your question, Hans. The sound of it is not necessarily as like furious as a lot of synths that are out there, for sure. It's Lonnie, I'll give it to you for what I paid for it if you're interested. It's super wonky with the layout, which is like a pro and a con. It's kind of like the Polyvox in that way, where like, but the problem is now I know what all of the Cyrillic means on the Polyvox. I'm like, it's basically a mini Moog with looping envelopes and a bandpass filter. It's very similar to a mini Moog layout. Whereas this, there's things I'm sure you could do with this that I'm not even aware of yet, you know. Well, okay. Wave State's a good example of a synth that's also very complex. But Wave State still, there's a difference between like complexity of, how do I say this? When you get into like the digital synths, of course there's complexity just from like the number of layers and something like Wave State where you've got different lanes. I mean, I asked Ian Dixon to explain it to me, and his answer was like, it's not that easy to explain. And he's like the Wave State guy, I feel. And the thing is that, but this is complex in the sense of like, it is Yamaha's attempt at a modular synthesizer without patch cables, where you can route anything anywhere. And that part of it is intense. I do think another LFO wouldn't have been bad, but it would have added more to it. Of course, it would have been more knobs and stuff. But the 3 EGs are luxurious, especially. And the other thing is, you know, embarrassingly, pathetically, I'm not good at sequencers, you know, and people know that about me. I'm not good at them. Even on Leviathan, you know, like Scott and the other people did videos on how the sequencer works. I'm not going to fucking show you because I didn't use it. Really, I don't think I've used it once since I turned it on, right? And it's got a very cool sequencer. This has this really great sequencer, and I think that's a good moment to actually jump into it now because we've spent enough time messing around. So if I move the envelopes, all the envelopes to sequencer, the envelopes can be triggered from the external input too, by the way. But if I move them over there and I move the VCOs to sequencer, we should be able to jump in here. So I'm just excited to have a real simple, silly little simple sequencer that I can actually learn. And Hans, I wanted to ask you, because you've told me that you can use the sequencer for modulation. Is that running the CV out of this into the external input? Is that how you do that? But anyways, let's get this going. Roy, how's it going? Yes, I did. I mentioned that it's got, well, I didn't mention that it has like the built-in legs, but the big difference is it doesn't have the sequencer, but it does have a Brilliance slider, which isn't here. So does the 15. So that's a really useful performance feature. I use it on the 70M all the time. So that's why earlier in the stream I mentioned that there's a way in which the CS-15, although it is slightly cut down without the sequencer, kind of is like the best of both worlds and costs about a third the price of this. So if you're thinking about buying a vintage monosynth, you know, that might be the way to go over this. So we can go down to 128 feet here too, by the way, which is crazy. Up to 4, all the way to 2. It's pretty crazy. So now what I want to do is, let me think about what I want to do here. I should, well, we can fuck around with that in a second. Let's get into the sequencer. So let's go to one step here. And immediately you can hear it's unquantized, so we have to use our ear to get it right. Now, if I'm using it this way, what I could do is I could leave everything at about noon, and actually just use the keyboard to lower the pitch if I want to use it in this bassline sort of way. So if I move it from normal to keyboard, then, you know, we can pick whatever note we want. Now, if we go to manual, as I go through these, then we can actually go through and one thing I'll say, Lottie, in Behringer's defense is if you get a real Model D, you're going to have tuning issues too. I had a Moog Source. Guess what? Tuning issues. We can put it in 2 steps, and then I found it useful to add steps sequentially. Because even if they look the same, they can be slightly off. Taryn, how's it going, my friend? This is a sequencer. Now, I don't know what the hold button does. I read in the manual it's to help you fucking be able to tune this shit, but... using the LFO. So if I turn the EG dep off, you'll be able to hear. So we could get kind of a mixture. Kind of more of a polyrhythmic type thing. Loopy on that. I'm way behind on the chat here. So let's see here. It is a pretty good one. What a cool sound. Set only one EG to sequence it. Right. So if I set, what am I using right now? If I'm using, so by setting EG1, actually, it sort of controls the LFO, interestingly. That's something to do. Okay, so what you're saying is sort of use the sequencer to drive, let's say EG1, but use the keyboard for everything else. So let's go ahead and do that. We haven't even gotten to the ring mod yet. Yeah, it's crazy how quickly that can get out of control. So I kind of need to bring everything back a bit. Let's kind of get our synth back to some sort of state that I remember. So let's set the EGs both to E. And there's still some cross mod type stuff happening here, so VCA 1. I think that was all happening with 1. So now if I go to 2, we can modulate VCA 2 with the LFO or VCO 1. So let's try the LFO first. That'll make more sense. So this is the ring modulator. Presumably the same one that you would have on the 80. Sounds pretty similar to the 70M as well. And of course we could change the shape of that. So the LFO could be a different shape at each VCA. Each filter can have a different LFO shape, and each oscillator can have a different LFO shape. Just think about that. It seems like the ring modulator is always fed from the sine wave, which is cool. Let's go to mod depth and see. In theory, you can take the same oscillators, filters, and amplifiers from any of the CS series and swap them in. It's not true with the 70M, which has an auto-tune feature. The oscillators have been updated to be able to auto-tune. So that is different, but otherwise they should all be about the same. Now, if they actually sound the same, you'll have to wait for a subsequent live stream where we actually shoot out the 70M versus the 30, because I bet they don't sound exactly the same, but it's not impossible that they could. Label Horror, welcome. What a great name. I love that very much, Roy. Bob Castro, thank you for becoming a member of this channel. Can I get a scum cheers for Bob? Thank you very much. I appreciate that. It's the members of the channel, the people who have the little vulture skulls next to their name. Those are the ones who support me directly and make it possible for me to continue to make videos. So can I get a scum cheers for you guys? Thank you. That's a thing. But where it gets interesting is if we modulate versus VCO1. So we're just listening to VCA2, which is basically just VCO2 right now. Actually kind of sounds like a wave folder. The best way, Roy, is actually just to become a member of the channel. So I think if you look in the chat below, there'll be like a little money sign, I think right there. And I think that that will let you become a member of the channel, I think. Hey, there it is. You just did it. Thank you, Roy. I appreciate it. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Cheers to Roy as well. That's the best way. Now we can actually use the modulation function as well here, I think. So by using the ring mod and on VCO1, we can still use the LFO to create amplitude modulation. that's what you wanted to do. Now, where this gets more interesting is as you tune VCO1. This is how we can get some of those talking robot type sounds. This is the original dubstep. Oh, that's such a good elephant. Interesting how that changes things. And as we also, by the way, crazy. Yeah, it is. It's I too, Shabba Overload, have a sickness for the thickness. It's crazy how quick and deep and experimental it gets. Oh, VCF1 can be modulated by VCO2. So wait, I want to hear that real quick. So the way I want to do I'm going to set... Oh, the sequencer's been going this whole time. That's crazy. I'm going to set EG1 to sequencer and then set VCA2 to the sequencer. And now we hear nothing. Good. Now... let's modulate that by VCO2. Oh wait, that doesn't. That modulates by the LFO. We do have noise, it's just really hidden away. And so we can feed VCF1 with the saw from LFO2. But can we modulate the filter? I don't see how I could modulate the fucking filter. From the external... Oh, wait. External. Let's try that. Yep, that's Filter FM. It's just really intense. Let's bring that, oh, it is down. Yep, that just is what it is. Hopefully I'm not destroying the synth by doing that. Let's pull that fucking cable out here and feed it from, where the fuck is that other one? Okay, wait, maybe over here. I think that's the right hole. Yeah, the distortion's crazy. Oh, wait, wrong hole. This is the right hole, I think. So we can modulate the VCF1 with VCA2. Hard to know. Okay, that's that one. Oh, there's no sound here. Why am I not hearing it? Because when you put a hold on. Yeah, I might be just using it wrong, Jim. I don't know. It doesn't have a feedback knob like a modern Moog or something like that, where I'm literally running a cable out of the back. And because I can't see, this synth looks like it's flat, but it's actually up on an angle so that it would look good on camera. So this part is flat. But from my perspective, the entire synth is like rocked forward. So there's no way I can actually figure out what I'm doing wrong there. But I'll check it out after the stream. That might have had something to do with it. Now, if I'm correct in my thinking here, we could turn the sequencer on, and the sequencer could then control the EGs. It's just a journey every time we get started. And I do have a feeling, especially like in the intro where I had the sequencer playing one part and the keys doing a separate thing, it is almost like baby's first Eurorack synthesizer in the sense that you do sort of set it up as a patch. I mean, that's true with all analog synths that have no digital control, right? Like you're just stuck with what the knobs are doing. But for me, there's something really cool about how you can set this thing up a whole bunch of different ways and get so much through this thing. Yeah, I would love a primetime, of course. That would be a great thing, Roy. Wow. Just I have trouble even knowing where I want to go from here because we've kind of covered that. The trigger could come from the LFO too, by the way. So if I put that over there and I go to keyboard mode, will that work? So it's on LFO mode, but I'm not hearing anything. Another thing you could do. Let me just look at the synth real quick and see if there's anything else major I haven't touched on. I think I've covered most of the functions and features of this thing. Keyboard follow. Filters, of course, could have all sorts of different LFO shapes. Low pass, band pass, high pass. Can't go negative on the VCAs. Did your payment go through? I'd have to double check, but if you've got the skull and everything, it should be good. Let me know, unless I missed something earlier in the chat that you were saying. I might have missed something. I apologize if I did. Yeah. Is there a separate ADSR for the sequencer? Well, sort of, yes. There's 3 ADSR. Well, there's 2 ADSRs and then a CS-80 style initial level attack time, decay time, release time, EG. But you can set them up any way you want. So you could use all 3 for the sequencer. All 3 could also be driven by the keyboard, of course. So that would just kind of be more of like a monosynth. And then the external, you can even use your external input to create triggers. So for instance, you could use like a drum machine. And even if you're not feeding that into the synth, which you could with this input knob here, right? So if I had a drum loop, I could feed that in and we could run that through the filters. But more importantly, we could turn that into triggers, which then would drive these EGs. So let's go back to the sequencer for a bit and kind of delve into that. So I'm going to put everything back over to sequencer mode and just see what we got now. Interesting. It was going positive that time. What am I doing wrong there? Is there any sort of pitch going on any of these guys? That was weird. Oh, that's interesting because it was on keyboard mode. So let's go to normal mode and just see what we get. Little vibe there, kind of EBM sort of Phrygian dominant thing. That throaty filter FME type sound even without doing too much. Trying to figure it out. Detune does nothing in sequencer mode. So this would be where having the brilliance slider would be great, because you could get that sequence going. You could have 2 kind of parallel low pass filters that have different depths and different cutoff frequencies. So we get that more interesting thing going on. I really agree. Everybody who's talking about how great the community is. and Lonnie talking about the inspiration. And this is as good a time as any for me to give my usual spiel about, look, I am the luckiest motherfucker on the planet to be able to have this synth as well as all of these other synths in this studio. It's been my passion for the past few years to really delve into the vintage world. But a big part of that is I have a YouTube channel where I can show all this stuff off, and it gives me something to talk about. If I was just a musician, I probably would not do this. I would not go this deep because it's you guys who make it where I want to share this stuff with you. And this community has changed my life. And I just want to say, there's no reason you can't get incredible sounds like this with whatever gear you have. Of course, this has a very unique architecture, which is what I like about it. But I guarantee you can get really close to these types of sounds. And hopefully the sounds are inspiring you guys to use the gear you have and not to just focus on the gear you don't have, which I am guilty of. You don't get a studio like this if you don't focus on the gear you don't have. But what I will say is this is really great, but there are totally modern stuff that sounds great and can have this. I mean, the Arturia Mini Brute, when I checked that out on the channel for Guitar Center, I was so impressed by that synth. And you can get, I think, some of the same attitude from that synth. I thought it was really great. And yeah, I just should say thank you. Can I get a scum cheers in the chat? Leviathan, what an honor to be able to work on that synth. I can't get the sounds from the CS-01. CS-01 is the Poly 800 of the CS series, and it's really cool. Malevolent. I'm going to go on record and say right now, I don't think the virtual analog stuff is its strong suit. I don't understand. They decided to go with like a lot of presets that really kind of highlight that more virtual analog type sound. And to me, that's not what that synth is great at. That synth can sound so deep and big because of the FM synthesis plus the analog filter. But if you're trying to do virtual analog, I do think there's better synths for that. And also just analog synths for that, you know, considering that it's pretty pricey, especially if you're in Europe. I wouldn't recommend someone to buy it just because they want like a virtual analog synth with analog filters. I just don't think that's what it's for. I think Leviathan is really great if you want to get Prophet VSE type sounds, because you can do that either with like wavetables or you can do it by the algorithm morphing. So I did a live stream on that showing how you can use algorithm morphing to get like PPG wave type sounds, Prophet VS type sounds, or just FM sounds with an incredible analog filter that warms it up. So that's what I think is the way to go. I think the CS-01 is rad too. How's it going, Keith? Yeah, I think the Hydra synth makes a lot more sense if you want to go that route, even though it doesn't have the analog filters. Just the way that they set Leviathan up is for everything to be phase coherent, which is what you want. And they put in a bunch of functions that help you break that up, but it still always, to me, doesn't really quite sound like a convincing analog synth. Yeah. And I agree with Synthsonic. Vintage synths are still selling for amazing prices. DW8000 is one of my favorite synths of all time. The Alpha Junos, and in Sonic, ESQ1, SQ80, VFX, those are all incredible synthesizers. Novation makes great stuff. Yeah, hey, the Prologue was an incredible synthesizer. The only reason I sold mine was just because I wanted to get that guy right there, the Chroma Polaris. And I'm happy I did. It's one of my favorite synths. This synth, 1550 sounds about right for a Polyvox. That's a good deal. There's nothing wrong with virtual analog. Can I get some scum sick in the chat? I'm just known for not liking virtual analog, and I think it's because I'm just fucking spoiled. If I didn't have a room full of vintage analog legends staring me in the face every time I go near a virtual analog synth, they literally pout at me. You could see it in their fucking eyes, the disappointment when I reach for the MS-2000 or JP-8000. Yeah, I think the Prologue's great. It's a little, the filter is interesting to me. I wouldn't have, it's good. It's actually really cool, but it's just not it's not what you'd expect from that type of synth, but the user oscillators are really, really good. So let's dive back in here. So you can drive PWM, faster than or into audio rate, which gives you some really cool sounds without getting that cross mod out of tune thing. I mean, Sebastian Comore, eat your heart out. it's a monster, isn't it? I think it's quite a good thing, is you know. I don't know. I hope I've done a halfway decent job showing off some of the beginning of what this synth can do. Really just an exciting night for me to be able to showcase this synth finally on the channel. It's been, like I said at the beginning, a white whale of mine. One day maybe a Prophet VS will come my way, but in the meantime, I've definitely joined the Hans Volt club of having an expander and a Yamaha CS-30. I really appreciate it, Adapt. Thank you very much, Billy Bard. Thank you very much, Lonnie. I think this is hard for me to imagine ever selling this synth. I don't know what you guys think. I always love to hear what Dubstation Zero has to say, because a lot of my channel has been me disagreeing with Dub, not disagreeing, but like being like, this is what I think, and then Dub has an opinion, and then I brattily slowly come along to believing what he thinks. But the VS is definitely the last white whale. And then I don't want to say I'll be done with vintage synths, because there's other synths I'd love to try out, like a Jupiter 6, a Trident. I did try out a Jupiter 6, but I'd love to actually have it in the studio to check out compared to the other Rolands. Trident is another one that I'd love to get my hands on. But what I will say is this, is if I get a Prophet VS, I think then it's time to go Eurorack, start getting into that, because that's right, 40. That's why this bad boy is going to be going up for sale, because it's a great synth, but I have not used it as much as I should have, and it's awesome. It's of course it's awesome, but for me this feels like the MS-20 in so many ways. Synthex would be incredible, right? But I don't see that happening. The VS will come one day if I will it. I hope so. Yeah, no, I mean, I've been wanting to get into Eurorack since I went to NobCon a couple of years ago. This group chat loves you, Derek. I've been wanting to get into it because it's clear that that's like, I'm going to be honest, like modern synths do not interest me most of the time. Leviathanth being one of the only ones that to me is doing something new, but with the gusto, charisma, and sound of a vintage synth. You know, it really is like an SY99, but with analog filters. And they even had Dr. Manny Fernandez, who worked on the 99, work on Leviathan. So it's there. Black Corporation, but you know, so the thing is that I'm already selling ass for sure, Adapt. But I definitely want to go to the Vintage Museum. Black Corp synths come from a time where you could charge that much for a desktop synth, and I just don't think that time is here anymore now that you've got synths like Polybrew 12 and Moog Muse selling for so much less. The Synthex would be one, but I just don't see it ever happening. There's other ones. I do want to try, you know, some cheaper ones like an Opera 6. I've never had an Italian synth, so while we're talking about Italian synths. But Eurorack is where I think new innovation is happening. Really cool stuff is occurring. It makes a synth like the CS-30 look easy. I mean, you can keep Eurorack very simple, but then it can get very, what is that? Icelandic synth? I haven't heard about that one. Yeah, monosynths are tough. And with the CS-30, at least, I felt like an instant connection to it, and it does something beautiful that just doesn't seem like something that I could capture elsewise. I agree. Leviathan is really great. I think that as they release more sounds for it too, hopefully people will, you know, when people were saying I got so many negative comments, and to be fair, when I'm saying negative, I mean towards the sound of the synth. 99% of people were still very polite and respectful. They would even say like, great video, I don't like the harshness of the synth. It doesn't sound that, you know, I got a lot of that on my Leviathan videos. And all I have to say is, again, even from my patches I submitted to them, they only took about half, and the half that they chose, a lot of them weren't my favorite patches, but they were the ones that sounded the most virtual analog-y. So I'm hoping that some of my warm patches will show up, because they're still owned by them. Like, I can't sell them or something. Like, they have those patches. So 40 Thieves, I mean, Dubstation Zero changed my mind for sure. Actually, a lot of people did. It wasn't just Dubstation, but listening to his set at KnobCon, I was like, that is fucking music. It's on this channel. If you search Dubstation Zero KnobCon live set or something, it's you know, I've got it. I uploaded it on this channel, and it's like, it's fucking songs with verses and choruses and builds and everything. His channel's great, and it's Eurorack, and in his studio he's got vintage synths as well. Yeah, a vector synth would be really cool. That's why the VS is great. And then, you know, like a SY-35 is like a vector synth as well, much cheaper. Genti Katla. I'm gonna impulse buy. I gotta check it out then, if everybody's talking about impulse buying that. Yeah, Euclidean sequences and twisting knobs. Christopher, no, they own them. So unless they somehow gave them back to me, which I don't want them to. I want them to release them on their own time if they thought they were good. You know, I think there were some that didn't get released that I thought were good that will probably show up at some point. Or they might ask me to do some more. That would be great too. I think Jexus has already started on his own library. To be honest, guys, I really want to get with Keith and get my vintage synth samples into Omnisphere. That would kind of be like more of a next step for me. And then there's other synths that I've done sound design on that aren't out yet. And, you know, like, I'm going more in that direction. It's not that I don't love Leviathan, but, you know, I don't see myself releasing a bank for Leviathan in the near future. Dude, Blush Response is so fucking awesome. And Protein's so great that they were able to put something out there. Yeah. So, you know, Eurorack at some point. Well, you know, but I'm not in a rush. I'm definitely taking my time, and we'll get there one day. So, without further ado, guys, I think that's the end of the stream for tonight. Thank you very much, Chris. I appreciate it. Thank you to everybody who makes this community what it is. You guys are so fantastic and intelligent and attractive people. It's just so great to be surrounded by the positivity. I feel so encapsulated against the negativity that sometimes seems to exist in other people's channels. And yeah, I just appreciate everybody who's here. So continue to be excellent, guys.